definitely on the upswing. While early this year they seem to have a tiger by the tail, next season the Bengals to a man are convinced they'll be contenders, not tail enders. Evidence is their third straight triumph, a 48-point drubbing of Cleveland in what is billed as the Battle of Ohio. Massive fullback Pete Johnson, number 46, set a Cincinnati rushing record with 160 yards, while former Ohio State Buckeye teammate Archie Griffin had a banner day, catching one TD and passing for another, as the Bengals rolled up the second highest point total in their history. Under new coach Homer Rice and with their quarterback Ken Anderson healthy again, Cincinnati wishes the season was beginning, not ending. About all the Browns had to cheer was the exciting runs of their scatback Greg Pruitt, number 34. He ripped for 182 yards, and despite hurting half the season with injuries, barely missed achieving the 1,000-yard mark for the fourth consecutive year. While neither the Browns or Bengals had playoff worries, in rain-soaked California, 2 games were played that decided the outcome of the NFC Central Division. The Rams demolished the playoff dreams of the Green Bay Packers and also assured themselves of the important home field advantage should they advance to the conference championship. Los Angeles, whose fortunes have seemed to be on the decline in recent games, never trailed, as they easily handled Bart Starr's ambitious Packers 31-14. Green Bay's only touchdowns were both scored by running star Turdell Middleton, number 34. Despite Middleton's end zone excursions, the Rams' defense was devastating, holding ground-oriented Green Bay to just 75 yards and forcing the Pack into critical errors, the biggest coming when Rod Perry, number 49, picked off a David Whitehurst dying quail. For the Pro Bowl-bound Perry, it was his 8th interception and the 3rd he's returned for a touchdown this year. In Oakland, a relaxed Raider team out of the playoffs for the first time in 7 years pulled out all stops in defeating Minnesota 27-20. While trick plays like the tight end reverse pass failed, it mattered little, for the Vikings literally handed the Raiders the game on a silver and black platter. Minnesota, in their biggest game of the year, coughed up the football 7 times. Despite the defeat because of the Packer loss, Minnesota eased into the NFC Central Division title. With a record of only 8-7-1, the Vikings have the worst record of any of the 10 playoff teams. But as everyone in the NFL knows, once postseason play begins, anything can happen. St. Louis had the ball first, but the early going was mostly parries and short jabs, with neither team obtaining a dominant position. Midway through the first period, Jim Hart unloaded a hanging balloon that was picked off by Atlanta's Roland Lawrence, number 22. It was the first break in the game and would eventually lead to a score. Steve Bartkowski wasted no time in firing long, and this 51-yard hookup with wide receiver Wallace Francis set up a 1-yard score by Ray Strong. The Falcon lead didn't last because on the next series, Jim Hart uncranked a 37-yard airstrike to first-year wide receiver Dave Steef, number 84. With the score tied at 7, the St. Louis defense began a battering charge. Defensive end Bob Pollard, number 82, had his target all picked out, and he homed in like a body-seeking missile. A replay shows that Pollard's trip down Devastation Row caused Bartkowski to fumble. Who wouldn't? And the Cardinals' Mike Dawson, number 73, recovered. St. Louis was hot, and they were putting together some spectacular plays. Steve's catch should have been put on canvas, and his teammates appreciated the superlative effort by the 6'3" wide receiver from Portland State, where he set records in both career catches and yards receiving. He was also a Division II All-America. A replay should leave no doubt as to why. With receivers like Steef around, it's no wonder that Hart continued to live by the pass. On the next play, he went to tight end Al Chandler, number 87, who turned what should have been a short gainer into a 12-yard score to put St. Louis on top 14-7. It was about to become a lead that had the lifespan of a struck match. Dennis Pearson's return was a 100-yarder, helped immeasurably by a good block thrown by running back George Franklin, number 40. Midway through the second period, the score now stood at 14 apiece. Jim Hart had no intention of going anywhere but up top, and Steef made another fine grab, although he had run out of the field. On the next play, with a 3rd and 4 at the Atlanta 26, Hart dropped back and hit a streaking Pat Tilley, number 83. And the seesaw was tilting once again. St. Louis 21, Atlanta 14. When Atlanta got the ball, Bartkowski was ready to fight fire with fire. But his flame was doused when defensive back Carl Allen, number 27, picked off this pass. By now, no one was guessing what Hart would do, and it's a wonder the Falcon defense didn't seem to be catching on. But just when they thought they had it figured, they got fooled again when Hart rolled out and kept on rolling right into the end zone for 6 points. With a 28-14 lead at the half, the Cardinals deserved a good laugh. After all, wasn't this a playoff team they were knocking about the head and shoulders? The Falcons, who have built much of their reputation on defense, would have to show what their offense was made of in the second half if they hoped to enter the playoffs on a winning note. What they needed was the striking power that the Cardinals have built into their fancy offense. Jim Otis's forward roll didn't fool anyone. The Falcons were waiting for him when he got up. But the second half would not showcase the running game. On the Cardinals' first possession of the second half, St. Louis used the run to set up the pass. And though they did go ahead 35-14 with Steve Jones's 3-yard flight, the rest of the Falcon-Cardinal game saw both quarterbacks go airborne. With St. Louis ahead by 21, Atlanta would, of course, have to throw to get back into the game. And with a perfectly thrown Bartkowski pass to Alfred Jackson, the Falcons started their comeback. Jackson's fumble came after the whistle, so the 56-yard gain stood. The powerful pass was positive proof of the strength Bartkowski has in his arm. And the touchdown pass he tossed to Ricky Patton brought Atlanta back into the game. Patton's score cut the St. Louis lead to 14 points with more than a quarter left to play. And on the Cardinals' next possession, the Falcons' defense finally came up with a big play. Ron McCartney's midair recovery of Jones's fumble was wasted, however, when on the very next play, Atlanta fumbled the ball right back, but the Falcon defense again held and forced a punt. Kicker Mike Woods' pass was complete to Dave Steve, who didn't care who was doing the passing. He just kept catching. Steve's stats for the game: 9 receptions for 183 yards. Another look at this one reveals the Cardinals were fortunate the play worked. The snap was a bit high, and Woods dropped the ball as he started to throw, yet still completed the pass. The fake punt pass kept alive what was to turn out to be the Cardinals' clinching drive. From the Atlanta 9, Hart pulled the ball down and ran for his second touchdown of the game. Hart had now scored 2 rushing touchdowns and had passed for 3 more in a 22 completion performance that was good for 333 yards. It was the kind of offensive display the Cardinal fans have been seeing in recent weeks. Since the early 0-8 problem days, Wilkinson's team has reestablished itself as one of pro football's preeminent offensive powers. And although they held a 21-point advantage, Hart kept looking for more. By continually trying for more points, the Cardinals gave the Falcons a chance to gain some confidence. Atlanta played tough defense for most of the fourth quarter, the kind of defense that enabled them to make the playoffs in the first place. Unfortunately, the Falcons' good defense came too late in this game, and if it waits any longer before coming around, Atlanta's trip to the playoffs is going to be a short one. The Cardinals, meanwhile, can't wait for next season to begin. Wilkinson kept the Cardinals hanging in after their disastrous start, and St. Louis won 6 of its last 8 games, including victories over both NFC wild-card qualifiers. St. Louis' first win of the year came over Philadelphia, which, unlike Atlanta, 42-21 losers this week, enters the playoffs following a strong showing against the New York Giants, as we shall see in a moment. In Philadelphia, there have been nothing but lean times.